If you've ever wanted your slider to work with your gimbal, this is the solution. It's the Shark Slider Nano II by iFootage. These guys sent this over to me, and I gotta say, I'm wildly impressed with this thing. Amazing product. We're gonna talk about the details. The product blew me away so much that by the end of this video, it's the Shark Slider Nano II. Things really escalate, and I don't know how else to explain that aside from saying, watch the video. I think you're gonna be also blown away by the end of this. So just stay tuned for whatever that may mean. Right here I have the smaller version, it's the 460, and it also goes up to the 660. Now the main difference between these two is gonna be the length. The 460 here has a slide length of about 9.1 inches. The 660 has a slide length of about 17 inches. We'll talk about a couple other differences, including price later on, but let's get in and kind of show you what this thing is capable of. Kind of the main feature that no other sliders are doing right now is that the gimbals can go right on top of it. Now I'm dealing with an RS3 here, which isn't fully compatible with the slider, but for the most part it is, and we'll talk about that shortly. So the first thing I want to talk about is power. How is this slider powered? Well, there's three sources of power for this. First, we have the electric gray 140 watt battery grip that iFootage sent over, and with one cable, this thing powers the entire slider. It could power your laptop if you plugged it into it, all through USB-C. It's also going to power the gimbal. So it does a lot, and this can hook on to a light stand. It can screw right into a tripod plate, really anything. So this thing is fantastic. You've also got a power brick that you could plug into the wall from USB-C and power this bad boy up. And finally, if you have a Sony NPF battery, you can pop that right onto the edge here, and that's gonna power this thing right up. So three power sources to make this super versatile. You can take it anywhere. Now, in terms of mounting, a couple different options. We have our standard mount. This is just a quick release plate that comes with the slider kit. It's got a 1/4-20, and then it's got the press down to get the smaller screw as well. So 1/4-20 and 3/8 screws, perfect for mounting your camera. But then of course, you've got the ability to mount your gimbal. And we're gonna talk about the gimbal mounting in a little bit. Now this slider, when it's horizontal, is gonna be able to support payloads up to 15.4 pounds, very impressive. And when it's vertical, this can actually support payloads up to over 7 pounds. So you can get a lot built on top of this and really mounting this thing vertical and have it doing some wonderful shots for you. So not really a concern based on what camera you're using. This thing can handle it. It's built very sturdy. And the carbon tubing structure on this not only means it can hold a lot of weight, but it's also very sturdy when it's sliding. So you're not gonna get that jittery shaking shot. You could pop this on a plate on the bottom, right onto your tripod, right onto a light stand. I'd suggest maybe using 2 tripods, have it on either side, or set it flat on a table just like this. Now, the best part about this whole thing is the DJI gimbal support. Now, pretty much all of the Ronins are gonna fit on this mount, and it'll actually give you a little slide-on plate. I'll show you here. This little mount is gonna come with the kit. It slides right on as a quick release onto your gimbal plate, and then it goes onto the bottom. If you take off the battery on your Ronin, it pops right in there and securely locks into place. You can see we slide it right in there. Super quick, super easy, and of course the power through the battery grip is gonna power your gimbal as well. And then we have a mount here that goes into the M4 slot on the side of your Ronin, just screws right in and then kind of locks with a magnetic grip to the front down here on the slider. That's how you're gonna get the reading between the gimbal and the slider. Now, one flaw that I realized when shooting this video is that models of the Ronin, for example, the RS3 and any of the minis, are not gonna have this mount here, so you're not gonna be able to get that same control. You can still put the Ronin on top of the slider, but we wanted the same control. So I'm not gonna be able to do some of the shots that this thing is capable of today, but I'll throw in some shots here so you can see how some of these moves look really great. And we'll show some more later in the video too. But nonetheless, we can still mount this. If you have an RS3 Pro, an RS4, anything a little bit higher, this will work just fine, and you can actually get a lot of fine-tuned control with the gimbal through the slider and really get a series of shots that are super impressive that I haven't been able to see anywhere else with any other sliders. So let's fire this up. Basically, you want to turn on your slider here, there's an on button. Just power it on. And then of course, if you're using your gimbal, you're gonna wanna turn your gimbal on as well. And you can see now we have a steady gimbal on top of a slider. One of the things that you'll want to do in order to control keyframes on this slider has the option to go up to 8 different waypoints or keyframes. So we could have a series of moves as we move along. In order to manipulate your gimbal, you'll actually want to slide down on the front of your screen, go to settings, and head down to push mode and just enable push mode, pan and tilt. That's gonna allow you to turn your gimbal and set it in different positions without having to worry about it jumping back into a certain spot. So one of the things that you'll need to do if you wanna make sure you can set keyframes using your gimbal. So let's just do an example shot here. I should point out that there's an app as well called iFootage Moco. You'll connect and you can control the slider remotely. It's really, really nice. Gives you a series of options so you can do things from afar, not right next to the slider as well. So if we go into our app, there's a button called manual marking, and I'm just gonna turn that on, and that's gonna let us set a series of keyframes. So I'm gonna bring this right to the start, and we'll tap A to set our first keyframe. We'll bring this right over to the far side here, and we will tap B, and I'm just gonna hit standby. It'll get to its starting position, and we'll go ahead and hit start. And by default, this is gonna just loop, it's gonna run its course, and you can see it's a really nice shot. We can change the duration, we could set a series of other keyframes, and this is a very simple sliding move. Now we're losing a little bit of features because I have the limitations of this gimbal with the RS3. I can't actually connect to the system to control pan, tilt, roll. If we could, we'd be able to actually change the direction of the camera at each waypoint. You can see me sort of dancing as though I'm the camera. We'd be able to do that with this, and I'll overlay some shots now of some other setups that have the working gimbal so you can see that the camera actually will pan or tilt as it's sliding along the frame here. So a really nice feature, really an incredible feature that the Shark Slider Nano II is offering. Again, we can't show it here on this camera setup, but were you to have the proper Ronin, then you of course can do that here. And you'll notice too that there's really not a lot of noise. If we just listen, I'll go quiet for a second. You're not hearing much sound at all from this slider. It's really quiet, which is great. I've worked with a lot of other sliders that kick off a lot of sound. It's just not really ideal for when you're trying to shoot something with spoken word audio. This, very little sound, very sturdy, not shaky footage. It's really fantastic. So some of the other features that can be achieved with this slider is a few different modes. We have video mode, which is our typical sliding shot. It's gonna be what you're using most of the time. There's also time-lapse mode, which is gonna allow you to get those incredible time-lapse shots. Let's say a night sky with the sliding shot, or a sunset, the sliding shot as well. It requires a very, very slow slide over a long period of time. This will let you do that. There's also stop motion. There's macro mode and there's panorama mode. Now I'm not gonna dive too much into those because I haven't had the ability to play with them, but it shows you just how versatile this slider really is. One of the other great features that you can control through the app is object tracking, face tracking. They give you a phone mount. So not only can you mount your phone to the slider and use that as an option for your sliding shots if you're a if you're a phone filmmaker or a phone content creator, but you can also mount your phone to the top of the camera. And then of course you can turn on target tracking and your phone will track your face or whatever object you choose, and it will control the gimbal, ensuring that you're following the subject you want to use. I'll overlay some footage of this in action. Again, because I have this gimbal that won't be able to read with the slider, I won't be able to actually do that right here, but I'll show some examples as you can see now to get a sense of how this object tracking works. So let's talk about pricing here. The Shark Slider Nano II 460, this is the roughly 9-inch slider model, is gonna come in at about $649. Now that's not gonna include your electric ray battery grip. This is an additional purchase on the outside, but really a fantastic bundle. And remember, the gimbal is of course not gonna come with the slider as well. So that's something you need to either own or purchase separately, but you can use this slider without a gimbal. You can use it without the battery pack. You could plug in or use a Sony battery Fantastic, fantastic value. Now, if you need something slightly longer and you want to jump up to the 660, which is 17 inches of sliding distance, that's gonna go for $749. So just $100 extra to get a little bit more length on your slider. Now, I want to show you a little example of just some close-up shots and what this thing is capable of.
You're a creator, I've got the thing for you. iFootage is the Shark Slider Nano II with gesture control, an object track, and a carbon fiber frame. There's no turning back. Slide, slide all the way. 'Cause with the Nano II, we'll film all day. With gimbals and lights, we've got all the power. 1K go endless shooting hours. I gotta be honest, this wasn't my plan. This took a turn. It was a product review for a slider from iFootage, and it blew me away, so I made this song.